All right. We are back with another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys are having a great day whatever day it is, and wherever you are. As always, it is Friday on the podcast. So we're bringing that Friday energy to you. It is a good day for a second reason because we have Derek with us on the podcast. Derek Morton with us on the podcast. I forgot the last name. He is from Net Gain Property Management Services down there in Utah, and they have 650 units in their portfolio that they manage, and they also focus on underserved communities. So this should be an interesting episode. Derek, thanks for hopping on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Derek and I were talking before we started recording, and then I was like, we need to stop this because we're getting all the good stuff out before we actually talk. So we quickly stopped, and now we're actually recording. Derek, I told you before we get on here, we always like to start with stories and hear how people got to where they are, because in real estate, everybody has an interesting story. So why don't you take us back to the beginning before you started Net and just tell us how you got here?
So at the time before I started NetGain, I was actually a marketer for a title company. So I had to suck up to realtors and lenders all day and be like, send me your business. I have kids to feed. And I had to do a lot of begging because I don't have a face that drives business. So at that point in time, I kind of felt like I plateaued with the company I was with. And so I was looking at different things. And I was laughing because I had a good friend of mine that was a real estate agent that's like, oh, we should start a brokerage and we should do this. And I'm like, I hate transactional real estate. I don't want to do it. And so fast forward about a year, we get talking, and we kind of just, as we're looking at the area we're in, we're like, I bet you we could probably do like property management. And, but if we did it, so we started talking about that. And then I sinned out of ignorance because I didn't realize that, in Utah, I had to be a licensed real estate agent, start a brokerage. So I became what I hated and what I didn't want to do, but we just did something different with property management. So I'm not involved.
Sorry to jump in here. Is that the case across the board that you have to be a broker in order to be a property manager?
So you have to be a licensed real estate agent if you're going to be paid for, by other people. So I had to find another buddy to be a broker. Offered the big salary of $0, but said you can keep 100% of your commissions. And he's like, I'm in. So we got lucky and the stars aligned. And so that's how we kind of got into it. And we had some basic philosophies on how we wanted it to look like. Some of which was really good, and we were able to apply, and we've been able to scale with it. Others of it was complete ignorance. And so we had to scrap that.
That's how it always goes when you start a business, is you have this idea, and then a year later you're like, well, I made a couple turns, but we've made it.
Yes.
So property management is one of the things, it's probably, in my opinion, it's the most difficult part of owning properties, of getting into real estate, is actually managing them and keep them going well. Everybody has their strong suits. It's definitely not my strong suit. And so I'm always, when we find good property managers, I always love to treat them well because I feel like it's a hard job. So why did you decide originally to go into property management? And then what were kind of the lessons that you've learned along the way?
So one of the big drivers is, I moved down from Northern Utah. I was a licensed title in like 2006. So right before the economy crashed. And, I survived. I got laid off, got lucky enough to be hired by another title company in 2007 after I was let go. And I was like, I saw the stars align, and I'm like, man, there's going to be another. And I'm like, I survived once. I don't think I can survive again in another one. By the aforementioned, I don't have a face that drives a lot of business. So I was like, I'm doom and gloom. And so at that point, I started looking at alternatives. And like I said, we just settled on, property management. We felt is a little bit more recession proof. And then we just thought there were some opportunities to be able to do some things in our market that were lacking.
And when you started it, did you, how did you start the business? How did you get traction? Were you just reaching out to individual property owners?
Yeah. So luckily I knew a lot of real estate agents because, the previous line. So we were able to get referrals that way. And then I'd cold call Zillow and all of that. And, I was used to having to be like, trust me, like, give me a shot. I have family to feed. And so we're able to do that. But the vast majority of our growth now is current owners expanding their portfolio, or current owners just referring their friends. And
Yeah.
so, like, that's when we made the leap up to northern Utah from southern Utah. That was all current owners are like, please. And it's kind of nice for people to, like, beg me, like, please just handle my stuff. Just please, whatever we got to do. And so it's been nice. And that's the vast majority of the growth. We still get agent referrals. We'll still get calls from Googles, but it's current owners and that are expanding, and then they're referring their friends, like, you got to use these people. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting over that hump for anything that you start. Like even this podcast, when I started, just getting over the hump of getting those first few guests or getting your first few clients. It's difficult to get there, but once you get over the hump, it's not smooth sailing, but it's a lot easier because things start coming to you. And I found that that's the case with absolutely everything you start. And so you just got to keep pushing until you actually get there. If you were to talk to somebody who, in today's world, 2025, was considering starting their own property management company, what kind of advice would you give them?
Be patient, like, especially when you're starting, because you don't know what you don't know. Like, I mean, you'll have people that are, real estate agents for years and worked with investors. They're like, oh, this is easy money. And they jump in and they're like, wait, hold on. Like, this is not what I thought. It's just a different animal. And just being able to be patient with vendors, because they're not always going to do what you want them to do. Tenants are tenants, and there's amazing tenants. Like, we've got a lot of them. I tell everyone, I said, the thing that shocked me, because everyone's used to, like, oh, you're just going to get yelled at all day and everything. And there's that aspect, but like 95% of the tenants, if you're doing your job, like, are awesome.
Yeah.
And they're really solid. There's 4% that they're not bad. That's either personality conflicts, they're a little more high maintenance than they want, whether they don't, they never let you know they're going to be late on rent, but it's paid, it's paid on the 7th or 8th. You just have to chase them a little bit more, or they don't communicate, on maintenance and everything, but everything's usually pretty solid, right? And then 1% sometimes are just brutal, and they make up for the rest. And those are the ones you're just like, why did I get into this? But when you focus on it, really 99%, are pretty solid.
Yeah. And you're never going to get away from that 1%. Again, in any business you start, there's always going to be that 1% of clients, that 1% of properties that you own, or 1% of anything that's just going to be a thorn in your side. And it's just part of the process. It's not going to go away.
What's surprising is that 1% looks different. Like, I mean, I tell people, I said, they're like, they got to have like a 700 credit score and this and that. And that's what I want. They've got to make like 5 times the rent. And I'm like, yeah, I just evicted 2 last week. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, sometimes those are just as bad as the ones that, like, as you talked about, the manufactured home park, like, that has a certain clientele and certain things that people expect from there. But like, at the same time, like, there's some amazing people in there, in that demographic that are there and are just awesome and fantastic and take pride in it. And there's a sense of community there.
Yeah.
That people don't expect. And and it's way cool.
Yeah. We were actually, and that's what we were talking about before this episode is with the parks that we own, we called so many property management companies to see if they would take on our facility or our parks when we first got started. And we just couldn't find anybody. Nobody wanted to take on mobile home parks, but you guys do that. And so first, kudos to you. Second, how is that going?
It's not too bad. Like, I mean, some of our best stories have come from there. I'm not going to lie. Like, I mean, there's a reason that sometimes they have the reputation, but at the same time, like, they're a lot of fun. And it's a little more difficult if the owner owns the manufactured homes, if you're just doing the lot rent. But like, they're a lot of fun, and you can get some creativity to them. And if you look at some of the manufactured home parks that are being built now, like, there are some awesome ones.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's a fascinating market that I kind of want to delve into a little bit.
Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com, so if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast. Yeah. And I've owned not large multifamily, but duplexes, triplexes in the past. And I have actually had less problems with people paying on time with the mobile home parks than I have with, single family houses, which you wouldn't think. I mean, obviously they're paying less at mobile home parks, but people always think that it would be difficult to own one, but it's not. Comparatively, I don't feel like it's that much more difficult.
No, I see the same thing. So I'm glad. Sometimes I'm like, anecdotally, I'm like, I just feel this. So it's nice to hear someone else kind of confirm, like from their experience, that we've got similar experiences. So
yeah. So speaking of mobile home parks, you also kind of have a niche at helping underserved communities get housing. Tell us a little bit about that. What are the strategies that you use, and how does that also benefit the investor?
So one of the strategies behind that is, when we're working with investors, I always tell them, I said, what you want to do, the ideal property is something that you can turn on a dime. And, where I was founded at, like we're a college town. So we have a university of about 10,000 students. And so it's like, okay, if you have a house that can be a single family, a duplex, and then we can do room rentals if need be, like you're protected. So you can adjust that from whatever market. And so, the first house that we did, the investor was looking to do student housing, and the area was in. I'm like, that's a little far from campus, and and the house was just, my kids still call it the stinky house, and it's, 8 years on, they'll drive by us, and I'm like, that's the stinky house, and my oldest is 19, and he's just that's 19-year-old saying that's the stinky house, right? Because it was just they had like 12 people living in there and 20 dogs, and they had to boot them all out, and like Home Depot got mad and walked off the job because they were finding, like, they was their pulling cart, found dog crap like shoved underneath the carpet. I can't fault them. Yeah. The owner was pretty blunt. He's like, you guys looked at it and bid it. Like, sorry.
Good luck.
Like, the installer was so mad. But we built that just kind of, there was funding for deposit assistance and then some of the rental assistance, and then there's case management. And the case management is the key. So it's like, if you're able to expand my staff really at no cost to the owner, and that's what that does. So when you have that case manager, sometimes these tenants, have had adversarial relationships with the with property managers in the past, and they don't feel comfortable talking to you. And and so they can talk to their case manager. Hey, here's the issues, here's the concerns, and they can interpret that and bring it on. And sometimes it's like, here, let's just work through the case manager. They're going to be able to better to explain it to them. And so
when you say case manager, you're talking about kind of like a halfway house, right?
No, there's usually, in some ways it is, but this is pretty much like they live on their own. Their case managers through the organization that has helped funding them, and the case manager is offsite. And they have meetings and everything like that. So like it's been eye opening, when you look at and you deal with addiction and homelessness and mental health and all that, and you see that outside, in the regular populace, and you're just like, man, some of these people, like, at some point in their life they didn't realize that there was a decision made that here you go, that if you were able to get them support when they needed it at that moment, like their life would be completely different. And so that's kind of what we've learned and focused from that population to go, okay, how do we learn to recognize those moments, and some of those moments, because you look at the power that stability and housing can do and have on people's lives. and what it does, helps with addiction and mental health and familiar relationships, all that. Like, to be able to have stable housing, like, it's a powerful elixir
Yeah.
for all these things. And so if you're able to keep them housed and find resources and different things, like, it's amazing what we can do. Like I tell people, I said the biggest shock for me is I didn't realize in property management how often we're on the ground floor for societal ills.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And Section 8 isn't the only program. A lot of people think that Section 8 is the only program that people can go to when they get into
Mm-hmm.
tough times and they need rental assistance, but there are tons of programs out there. Owning a mobile home park, I now understand just how many there are, and people, if they don't qualify for Section 8 for whatever reason, there are other resources out there that they can go to if they're hitting on hard times.
Well, and not only that, you're starting to see some of the private market. Like, I know Azusa, like, at one point in time, so they do credit reporting and everything, and they had a rent help program that tenants could apply for. And I know there's a couple other companies looking for it, and it was kind of cool because it's like, here you go, and it becomes a 0% loan, and for them, they just have to pay it back within a year and a year and a half. And so, like, just those interjections, so where you're starting to see the private market, and like I'm blessed to live in Utah. It's very,
Pretty low
I need to.
homelessness there.
Well, no, there's still quite. I'm trying to figure out. All of a sudden, I was like, I'm blessed because, like, we're very landlord friendly, and I'm like, that's going to be like everything I just said. Also, I'm like, way to undercut it. No, like, so we don't have like the rent caps and all this stuff that we
Oh
have,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and it's something that, like, I don't want to see. And I'm like, one of the things, one of the ways to stop that is the private market needs to figure out how we can solve those on our own,
Mm-hmm.
so that we don't have the government jump in. And so, and Utah's trying to figure some stuff out, and looking in. So that's kind of where I'm like, okay, well, what can we do here? Like, what do we do here? And that's why I love, like, the security deposit alternatives, like using obligo or lease guard. And so we're able to get additional protection for the owners, with increased deposits, but it's actually lower cost to the tenants.
Oh,
So,
interesting. There's companies out there that will basically step in for your security deposit.
mhm.
Do they have to put up collateral, or is it just
No,
is it
so, like,
a government program?
so it's not a government program. So the two that I use, so Obligo is integrated with my software, and so they pay, I think it's 10 or 15% of the deposit. So say if the rent is 1,000, our deposit standard now 1.5 times the rent.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's a $1,500 deposit, they're going to pay $1,500 to $200, and that's their annual fee that they pay to use Obligo. And then what happens at move out is we just in the Obligo will verify that they have that money in their account and everything. And so then at move out, we just go, okay, here you go. And Obligo is able to pull that money from their account. So say we only have used $700 for repairs, cleaning, carpet cleaning, whatever. They've only paid $900 as opposed to 1,500.
Hmm. That's interesting.
And then with Lease Guard, and this is my favorite one. So it's basically an insurance product. So they pay a monthly premium. So in this case, I think it's like $45, $46 a month that they pay. And that's obviously non-refundable. So they're going to pay, $500, but they have $1,500 of protection. So at that point, even if they did $1,500 worth of damage, they've only paid $400 as opposed to, or $500 as opposed to, the whole 1,500. So really, I think we did the calculation. So to break even, so if they pay the whole deposit, most of these premiums, they would live in the unit for 2 to 2.5 years before they've paid the same amount that they would have paid up front with the deposit. And
Interesting.
some of the things I like about it, because COVID, I'm sure you saw, like, so many of these tenants, like, owners are like cashing out. I mean, I did it, like, I'm going to take the equity out of this and move it and whatever. And these tenants are like, I'm hosed. And they weren't planning on having to come up with a deposit up hand. And so they're like, okay, I just moved in 3 months ago. Now the owner is like selling this, and I got to come up with, we're a lower rent here in Southern Utah, but some of these places are 2,000, and if it's 1.5 times, there's $3,000, and it's like, how do I come up with this? And so that's just another huge, impediment to get people into housing through no fault of their own and no fault of the investors. Just like that's just circumstances,
Yeah.
that happen. So
Yeah, having it as an insurance product to cover the deposit, that's pretty makes a lot of sense. It's pretty unique.
yeah, and I love them, and the claims process is pretty easy and stuff. So like we've been using both of those products for about 2 to 3 years now, and it's been great success. And about 30% of our portfolio use them.
Oh wow.
And then, when I don't really care. I'm like, you can do cash, you can do this, or you can do this. And I get the deposit either way. So we're good. Now you have options.
Well, hey, I just took a peek at the clock. It looks like we have run it down. So it's time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Starts with education, could be any form, could be a book you've read, a conference you've gone to, mentorship program you've been a part of. Man, I can't talk today.
I jinx people like that, so I apologize.
I need 2 recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate.
So one book that I absolutely loved, I haven't read it for a while, but I was reviewing this, The Dalai Lama, Art of Happiness. It was one of the best books that I've ever read. Just kind of just a different way to look at life and everything. And then while this one's not necessarily real estate, it can tie in, and it's a term that you hear all the time in real estate and business in general, But it's 10x is easier than 2x by Dan Hardy.
Grant Cardone. Oh, Dan Hardy?
Yeah, Dan Hardy is the one who wrote it. So Grant Cardone uses 10x all the time.
He just took it. Okay.
Like, that's why I said, like, it's a common phrase, not necessarily real estate, related, but common in it. So, but like that one is really powerful. And just here's the system, here's this, just changing the mindset. So those 2 are the ones that came to mind that I've just absolutely loved.
Nice, I like it. All right, let's go back to the Derek who was just getting started so many years ago. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Let's see. I think just like we talked about earlier, just be patient. Like, just have that patience. We have sometimes, while it's important to push and you can be aggressive, but sometimes understanding when to take that step back and let things happen naturally. Things usually work a little bit better when you're able to find that balance.
Yeah. Easier said than done. That's for sure.
Yes.
I keep seeing that little beagle run behind you in the office. I have 2 beagles. I absolutely love them. So it's super cute.
That is Sage. That's our office assistant, Pop. And so she's the office mascot. So
nice. I like
it's taken a few months for her to warm up to me because I'm an overgrown child. So I like to scare things and all that. So that dog has some trauma.
All right. Next question is about the U.S. It's a big place. There is a lot of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
So I hear a lot of good things about the Midwest, but as we've expanded up into Salt Lake and Utah counties, so Salt Lake, Provo, I'm loving those areas. I love where I'm at. There's a lot of opportunity here in Southern Utah, but I really am geeked out about the opportunities up there in Salt Lake and Provo. The more and more I get up there and meet with agents and just network, like, I really like that area.
Yeah. Every time I have a layover at the Salt Lake airport, just looking out in those mountains, it's amazing. The city just like goes right up to them. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, next question is about lessons learned. Not every deal we get into goes the way we expect it. In fact, many times things take a turn for the worse, but that's when we get to learn a lesson. So what was a deal that you got into that went a little bit sideways for you? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
So I've become really selective on owners. And I remember, like, early on, like, so personality matters, philosophies, all this stuff matters, right? Like, when you're finding these partners. I remember with this owner, and there was nothing wrong with the owner. Like, they're great. I remember sitting down and visiting with them. I'm like, I can see all these red flags why this is not going to work between us. And so I originally told him no. And it was an agent referral. And the agent's like, you told my client no. And I explained, and the owner's like, but you like, I want to use you. You're like, you're the best. Like, look at your reviews, look at all this. And I'm like, and it's hard to be like,
Got to be a
it's
two-way
because
street,
I'm
buddy.
really choosy on my owners. Like, and like, I don't see it working. And so after about a week, like I finally caved, and it just was worse that and they weren't doing anything wrong, but it's like, you hired me to do this, and there's a reason I'm good at what I'm doing. Why are you paying me if you want to do it? Like that type of stuff. And
Oh,
then like,
they want. Yeah.
and then the tenant, while like just had an interesting life, that even I'm like, I understand what I'm saying. Like, I understand what I'm saying. It's 100% true. Your property's okay. But I understand the concern. Like, it was just a perfect storm that I'm just like, wrong tenant for the wrong owner. Like, and it just didn't work. And so like, I've even become, I've still made mistakes over time, because sometimes like, oh, they have a lot of units. Like, I can deal with this. And then we're like a year later, like, why? So just better selecting those owners that kind of match, and you can feel it. Like, just trust your gut on that.
Yeah. So the lesson is, it's you want owners that trust your ability to do the job versus trying to
Mm-hmm.
get in there and do the job for you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's totally reasonable. Which is, if you're an owner, I understand the desire to want your properties to perform well. But if you are not property managing 24/7, you're probably not as good as the person you're hiring. So it makes sense to step back.
Yeah. And all I ask, like I tell them all the time, I said, if I'm sucking, like, go into details. Like, we can have that conversation and we can see what we can do. But a lot of times I'm like, have you dealt with this before? Like, this is my fifth time this week. Here's what the law says. Here's this, you know. So
Yeah,
it's interesting.
makes sense. All right, this is the last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then what can they expect when they reach out?
So best way to reach out to us is through our website, netgainpm.com. So NETGAIN and then PM for propertymanagement.com. And when they call, you're going to kind of expect kind of what this conversation was. We're pretty blunt and honest, and like, you're going to be wanting to know everything about us, but I'm also going to be like, tell me your property. What's this? Here's what I do. Like, does this fit? Cool. Here's the experiences we've had with similar properties, so that we both go in with our eyes wide open on what to expect, because I hate making false promises. And I'd much rather, if the rent's not going to be as high as you want or think it should be, like, we know going in, instead of like, we've wasted 2 months and we go back to where I said I needed to be at the beginning, and you're out 2 months worth of rent and payments and all that.
All right. That is NetGain PM. I will put that link in the show notes. So if you guys want to reach out to Derek, all you got to do is click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description, and in there you can find his link. All right, Derek, that was a pleasure. I appreciate you hopping on the show.
Oh, thank you. It was a blast.
All right. For everybody who's with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe, at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, just leave us a review. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at gabe@therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.